starts around 3 so that I could get in town, get to the airport, like 2 hours in advance, like they tell you, right? So, I'm checking to see if we're on Facebook. Yes, we are on Facebook. Okay. Welcome, everybody on Facebook that's just tuning in. This is People Before Politics radio show every Sunday, 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com. I'm AJ Winston, your host. I'm back on the block, like I was just saying. So I was telling the story about my trip. So I was supposed to have a 5:30 flight. So before I left the house, I got an alert from Delta saying, well, your flight has been pushed back to 6:20. So instead of getting here at 7:39, where Dr. Bob was going to be waiting for me to pick me up, I was going to get in at 8:39. So I text Bob to let him know. So we finally boarded the plane, and then we sat on the runway for like 45 minutes. They told us stuff like, oh, the weather is bad in LaGuardia. They're going to shut down the airport. I didn't even know if I was coming back to New York that night. So I'm telling Bob. Bob's still texting me. I'm telling him, I don't know. We ain't leave yet. I'm trying to tell him when we leaving. Then the plane went back to the gate, and we had to get off the plane to walk 5 gates down to wait for another plane to unload so we could get on that plane. Eventually, we got out of Atlanta somewhere around 9, and I got to LaGuardia at 11:08.
And Bob was there waiting for you, right?
Yeah. I'm getting to that part.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say nothing.
I'm just saying. So
blew the punchline.
Right.
Oh, man.
So my flight that I was supposed to be in, I left later than the time I was actually supposed to arrive. I was supposed to arrive in New York. Oh, and then while on the plane, the turbulence was so crazy they couldn't even bring the carts out. With the soda, the lady went to bring the carts out, and the pilot told them to put them back because the turbulence was so crazy they didn't want it to hit people. They was worried about it running up and down the aisle hitting people. So it was like really, really rocky. So a reason I bring this up, and I want to bring Bob and Lorraine into the shot. So I want to give, sometimes you have, what's the Houdini song, Friends? How many of us have them?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, some of y'all think this whole Facebook thing means friends. There's no such thing as Facebook friends. That's just a word on Facebook. But a friend is somebody that you told to pick you up at 7:39. And what do you do? What you looking at? What are you looking at?
I got on green. I just realized I got on green.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's so
almost
cool.
invisible.
So a friend that you asked to pick you up at 7:39, then you tell him it's 8:39, then it's 9 o'clock. Then I refused to hit him back until we were up in the air. But then once I got in the air, I couldn't text no more because, you're up in the air. So luckily I was able to get on Facebook and hit Lorraine and ask Lorraine to text Bob because I know he wouldn't check Facebook. And overall, my man came through. He had worked all day. He had to work the next day. He stood on standby. He was there. I just want to say, that's what you call a true friend. I was just talking about earlier on one of the videos I did in Atlanta about how God, when you sometimes we go out and try to pick a team, but sometimes when you just let it happen organically, God will surround you with strong people. And, the teaming up of me and Damon, me and Bob meeting, and I want to say, everybody said I never say nothing nice about Richard Thomas. The nicest thing I can say about Richard Thomas is the best thing he did for the world is run for office, and me and Bob met during the campaign. That's
am I part of this team?
So I didn't get to you yet, but I'm just talking about this.
Oh God, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you, Richard Thomas, for running for office. So I met a real cool homie that has become a diehard friend, and it's like, we've been friends for years.
Oh, that's so
You know
awesome.
what I'm saying? So, you say things, people give you props, and they say stuff, but I just want to say this on the radio, Bob is true blue, for real. You know what I'm saying?
Give him an applause. Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
You know what?
Before I can say anything, Lorraine was like, do this, do that.
I think Dr. Bob is so cool.
So anyway, I just want to give my man props. And again, like I said, sometimes I'm hard on Richard Thomas. But because he ran, me and Bob met. And that was supposed to happen. And I told Bob that yesterday, I think, when he came through. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's
so it's
nice.
like, Like, yo, so Bob live in Yonkers, so Bob will run through Mount Vernon and he know when I'm on my schedule and I'm working like nonstop, and he'd be like, yo, I'm running through Mount Vernon, you gotta go anywhere? Like, he always check up on a brother and get me out the house when he know I need a break. Like, you have no idea, you know what I'm saying, how Bob holds me down. And what he brings to this whole situation. Thing. So props to Dr. Bob.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brother Woodson.
Then there was other elements. Cynthia participated in the show when we first started off.
Sure.
And she, when Damon was
the
out of
original
town,
queen.
Yep. And when Damon was out of town, she took me down to the Eric Garner funeral, and it was like, yo, I met the Peacekeepers. I brought a shirt just to support them. Next year, I know they put me to work. I'm sitting here holding people back and talking to kids in the street about not running to the cops and attacking the cops, like something that would not have been good for the community. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, yo, she was like the Angela Davis in the, like, if you see like a picture of the Panthers, there's a picture of her with all the peacekeepers and all the activists, and she's in the middle, and it's like Angela Davis, like, just in the middle of all of that, like, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, that's
shout to her. So she brought a certain element. Her and Damon go way back, and then. Who's the next? Oh, Priscilla. Shout to Priscilla's. Priscilla is the one. She had this show. She had a show on the station and invited Damon to talk, to be a guest on this station, on her show.
And that's how it all originated.
And while we was there, I came just to videotape Damon like I do on his press conferences. And we and Damon was like, yo, we talked to Cruz, and we was like, yo, we could do a show here. Like a month or so later, August 3rd, 2014, we started this show. So. You know what I'm saying? And she's been an integral part back and forth in the crew. Who was the next person? Because there was a few people before you. I'm trying to think that.
Brenda.
Brenda has been integral part. Shout out to Brenda. She is out of town taking care of a sick relative. She told me that it may be actually a couple months before she'll be back. But she is coming back. But for all of you who asked me, Brenda has not left for good. She just holding down family, like, being a caregiver for her parents, you know what I'm saying? And, that's a hard job. So shout to her. And on another note, Brenda is my accountability partner for eating. She always go, what did you eat today? What did you eat today? And then we sharing each other pictures of what we ate, and it was like, yo, that's not healthy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo. So she like stays on me on all of that. So
she said that's not healthy.
So she was like, okay, AJ, don't. I said, yeah, I slacked off a little bit. Okay, we need to get you back. So she texts me almost every day. What you eat today? I ain't see no text. What you ate? What you eat today? So she stays on me on that. So even if she's not here, she's still holding me down. So and if I don't hear from her in a couple of days, I'll be like, yo, what you been eating? I ain't see no pictures. Like, yo, that means you eating some stuff you ain't supposed to be eating. What's going on? So we do that, and that's a good look. But she holds it down. Max, shout out to Max.
Definitely.
Max has been an integral part. Max is like, yo, if Max thinks I needed a ride, Max will be there. Like, if we were talking, we would. When I was in the hospital and he heard me say that I was leaving, he heard the doctor talking to me, and I was trying to arrange a ride. Max was already at the hospital that day I was leaving to come pick me up. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I forgot something else. That I was saying something that I needed before I left. I was just having a general conversation. Max brought it and came to the hospital with it, like whatever it was that I needed. So a whole shout out to him and Brooke. She held us down. They do the Westchester Corrections Association. Hey, Cruz, what's going on? All right. Oh, look at the beard.
I just said that to his wife.
He look at him. He turned into the mad Uber driver. He got the long beard. Yo, word. So then Damon, one of the first hiatuses Damon had to take because of, the situation, dealing with the retaliation, we had Lorraine Lopez come. She had wrote one or two editorials about her friend, Joe Spezio. They were friends in Yonkers. And she was saying she didn't like what he was doing in Mount Vernon, and actually wrote an editorial telling Joe that he should.
I remember that.
Right. So she, like, basically, you should know better. Like, I'm disappointed in you, kind of thing. So we had her come on the show as a guest once or twice, and then Damon was just out. He was just gonna be out a couple of shows, and she filled in. And we was talking. We was like, yo, we need to. Even when you come back, we need to keep her on the show. Yo, she has been an invaluable asset, friend, ally, whatever you.
Keep
whatever.
going, keep going.
She's like,
The only
just kidding. I'm
asset
kidding.
asset friend, ally. You still like A. All right, maybe F. You got a long way to go, brother. About 20 more letters.
Yeah. So Bob was supposed to be my alphabet dude. Bob was supposed to throw me some words.
I was like, that was about it for me too.
That was so cool how he caught all the
Shout
A's.
out to Damon who just put up 3 smiley faces.
Hey,
He said,
Damon, what's up?
fam? So yeah, she came through and set the world on fire, representing as a Republican, a Latina Republican. The first thing I had her write for the paper was being a Latina and Republican in the Trump era. That's like the first thing she wrote for the paper, which was a very interesting article from a perspective that very few can talk about, because I don't know too many other people that could have
Just
written
for
it from that.
sheer rarity.
Yeah. So
A Spanish woman and a Republican. Oh, Jesus.
Lorraine,
Yes,
speak
sir.
on the conversation between me and Joe, and you was the middle. The guy is pure coward.
Yeah, well,
That's what Damon is telling you.
it's true because Joe sent me I would say about 50 texts talking about Damien and how he just said a lot of bad things about Damien. And one of the things that he did say in the texts was that he kind of admitted that he was responsible for something that went on with Damien and the family. And he was trying to negotiate something so that him and Damon could sit at the table so that he can fix that situation because he had the power to fix it. So he basically admitted to that he was responsible for a lot of Damon's headaches and heartache and
Retaliation against his family.
yeah. And I eventually ended up giving all those texts to Damon.
So Lorraine just stepped in and she just filled, like, you know, when you let things happen organically, like, it's just incredible. Like Lorraine, like, brought a perspective that, like, you couldn't plan for it. Like, I couldn't have written that. If I was writing a book, I couldn't have wrote her role better. She just, like, came in, get in where she fit in, and just killed it.
And let me say, it's an honor for me to be here. I'm very honored and I'm humbled to be here, and I appreciate you guys very much, and I thank you for allowing me to be here. Actually,
and she comes with a wealth of information about government and politics. As the first Latina elected into the Yonkers City Council, serving as a special assistant to 2 mayors, and a wealth of other things. I don't even think we have time to list her long list of accomplishments. All I'm going to say is she gets it in. You know what I'm saying? And she's been holding it down for her community. Caught some bad flack for some other stuff, and, you know, still kept it going, kept the head up, just kept rocking, and just keeps doing what she does. And props to her. So anyway, that's the team.
Thank you. Appreciate
That's the team,
it.
and thank you for everybody else who has played any role. So I just wanted to get that out, but I wanted to big Bob up, word up, because I was like, I was just sitting on the plane like, okay, I cannot text him. It's gonna be another half an hour. Okay, it's gonna be another 20 minutes. Like, I said, I'm not hitting him no more time in the air. Like,
Asia, as you know, I sometimes tout myself as a gentleman and a scholar, and you know, there's no better testament to it than that on Friday nights I was sitting in front of my computer doing work.
okay.
I had no place to go.
Okay. Well,
So
I appreciate you.
But I do, and here I do want to say something on a serious note. Of course, AJ, you know, my devotion and, you know, assistance and everything, you know, that I do to help you is surely personal. You are my man personally. But I also want the audience members to know that I am motivated as much by the principle of solidarity that was once a guidepost for all radicals, activists, and how they dealt with one another. In other words, by solidarity, we must support one another. If ventures of the kind that we're now engaged in, which are risky and are not guaranteed and are not as fully supported as we might like, are to succeed, then that means that everyone, not just me, not just Lorraine, not just Cynthia, not just Brenda and so many others. And
shout
Priscilla,
to Atif. Atif was the latest.
and Atif, yes. Damon and everyone else, who makes the show successful. But in the future, we're hoping that more people are going to give some aid and assistance. Of course, through supporting the show and getting a subscription to Black Westchester might be one, but also
Absolutely.
actually doing some of the work on a volunteer basis that is so vital still at this point in Black Westchester and People Before Politics Life. So I invite everyone. There's plenty of room for everyone to contribute. So please do
Appreciate that. And Cicely Greaves, I think that's how you say her name.
That's my girl,
She
sis.
said Lorraine is a great friend and did a lot for the community. I went on some of those late night runs with her to do community work. Made my father very happy right up to him leaving.
Oh, God rest his soul. Thank you, Cicely. I appreciate that.
So I just wanted to acknowledge a few people. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about, like I want to, we are literally, I think Bishop Darren Moore wrote on his Facebook page today, and I'm just going to steal it straight up what he said. Last night, we turned the clock back an hour. Tuesday, we have the ability to take the country back. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just because it's not going in the direction that a lot of us wanted to go. And if it continues to go in this direction, this is literally possibly one of the most important elections in a lot of our lifetimes. At least in my adult life. I'm sure there were things when I was a young youth and I'm not really, up on. But in my adult, this where we are right now at the time. So I just wanted to go over a few things. Of course, I was in Georgia. So I was in Atlanta, and I first want to start there. So what's going over? And before I go further, I agree with something I heard Michael Moore say. This is the weekend 2 years ago where every poll told us the Democrats had it in the bag and Hillary was the winner just about. Which means, and this is something that I believe is by design too, which means a lot of Democrats who may have been busy that day was like, oh, it's a done deal. It don't matter if I vote or not. Like, she got this. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't vote.
Right.
This election, they're hoping you do the same thing again. Because every poll, they're showing Stacey Abrams up 2. They're showing Andrew Gillum up like maybe 7. They're showing some of the races in the House like it's a done deal. It's not a done deal till the polls close. Everybody needs to come out and vote. This is a very important election. And one of the things for all of those who were disillusioned over the presidential election, there is no electoral college in this election. The winner gets the most votes. Like, there's no, because, Hillary got the most votes, but he won the electoral college. And a lot of people were disillusioned and said they wasn't voting no more because their vote don't count, and they was upset. There's no electoral college in this one. Secondly, do not fall for the whole thing that Stacey Abrams is up. Georgia is a runoff state, meaning if neither one of them get 50%, they then have to have a runoff election on December 4th or the 9th, one of those days. It's hard enough to get black and brown people to come out one time, but then to come back out again, the Republicans will be coming out strong in the second election if there's a runoff. So the only way you secure her position is everybody in Georgia. And I know shout to my Short Temple family out there. I know a lot of y'all are listening to the show for the first time. Shout to everybody I ran with, Reginald McGee, Majors, all of y'all out there. I did a couple of interviews out there, did a couple of videos. A lot of people did not know this. You know what I'm saying? Y'all all need to go out. In every election, y'all need to go out. But in that election particular, because it's a runoff state, y'all need to get, the only secure in her position is to get her over 50% in the first election. Because they're counting on it being a runoff and black and brown people not coming out a second time. They're already counting it. Secondly, the man she's running against, what's his name, Brian Kemp,
Yeah.
is the Secretary of State and the head of the Board of Elections. So he's making the policies and procedures in the election that he is in, to the point that former President Jimmy Carter got on MSNBC and was like, yo, you need to step down. It's a conflict of interest. I don't know the last time I heard Jimmy Carter speak about any election. Like, I think he spoke up for Obama, like when Obama was running, maybe. And then in 2008, I think he might have came out for Obama. But other than that, like, Jimmy Carter does not come out. This is his state. He cares about his state. Jimmy Carter was making passionate pleas that this guy needs to step out, that it is a conflict of interest. And I just want to say, a lot of people down there did not see what's going on. Yo, voter suppression down there is real. They were pulling over buses full of seniors saying and making the seniors get off the bus that was taking them to the polls and doing crazy stuff and taking people off the ballot because they had a hyphen in their name, either on their thing and didn't have it on their ID, or had a dot, like if it was M, if you just have your middle initial dot and you didn't have the dot on the other thing, they threw it out. Like, I was just like, yo, but they did this to the black and the brown community. You know what I'm saying? And MSNBC got a videotape, audio tape. Brian Kemp last week was caught saying, yo, we got to do something about this early voting. This early voting is becoming a problem. Somebody recorded his private conversation and gave it to MSNBC.
Yeah.
They are scared. They are to the point that he has taken up, Trump is supporting him. He has taken up the Trump approach to talk about an investigation he's starting into Stacey Abrams for illegal hacking the Georgia voting system. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, this is like bringing out the Hillary thing 2-3 days or whatever, how many before the election. Like, it's the same thing, the whole thing. And it's like, yo, offering no proof or nothing, but just enough to make it be news coverage going into the election. There is officially 35 and a half hours to the polls open. Everybody needs to get up, get out, and vote. All of these states that got swing states, all these states, not just the Stacey Abrams, not just the Gilliam election, but Texas election. That's another big one.
And Florida.
Then Florida, that's another big one. All those elections, but all the other elections are big. What they're counting on is the Democrats not showing up. What they're counting on is those people that were voting Republican and voted for Trump that are fed up now that are not voting for. They were showing people saying, yo, I'm a Republican, but I'm voting Democrat because, yo, this is not my Republican Party. Something similar to Lorraine said something to me about when they asked her why she stayed with the party. I think you said something about, and I hope that the party gets back to what it was, or I'll let you speak, but you said something like that, like hoping, there's a lot of other Republicans that feel that way, that are not with this Trump situation. They've turned down a lot of females. I mean, they've offended a lot of females with the whole Kavanaugh situation. They're scared to the point that right now, these elections are so important. Trump and Obama are both going all over the place right now in a lot of these areas to rally up people. It's bad. You know how serious it is when Oprah calls up Stacey Abrams and was like, yo, I'm coming out to help you, can I? And Oprah does 2 town halls and then starts knocking on people's doors to tell them to vote for Stacey Abrams. Like, could you imagine? This comedian had this thing. The lady opened the door, and it was Oprah, and she thought she wanted a car, and said, oh, damn, you just want to talk about the election? like Oprah came and knocked on your door, like, yo. So I wanted to, this is that time, like I said, 2 years ago, they said Hillary had it in the bag, and everybody went for it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody still needs to go out and vote like your life depends on it. And don't fall for the hype that the polls are showing that the Dems are ahead or in a dead heap or anything like that, because every poll almost said that Hillary should have won. And while it's still an outside chance for them to actually take over the Senate, there is a chance. I mean, they need an inside straight. They need a straight flush, like in every election. You know what I'm saying? Like, but Dems, they know Dems are least likely to show if they think it's in the bag. You know what I'm saying? So
especially here locally, which it's a little bit scary thinking about it, because I just heard in the news that Tuesday evening it's going to rain. And when it rains here locally in Westchester County, a lot of people don't come out and vote.
Right.
They don't come out in the rain. They're not going to stand in the lines.
Right. Well, that's why I'm glad that, like, one, I think New York needs to have early voting. I stood in one. My father and my stepmother went to one line at the Cobb Board of Elections, I think it is. I posted it on my website, on Facebook. Yo, there was a 45-minute to an hour wait, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on day 10 of early voting. I stood in that same line years earlier in the last Obama election, and the line wasn't that long. So people are coming. And they said something like 35 million people have contributed to early voting so far. Like early voting, like it's broke all kinds of records. Like I think in the 2014 election, it was 21 million. There's 35 million people that have voted in the early voting. So this
That's
is
a
very
lot of people.
This is very serious. So I just wanna seriously, I wanna encourage everybody. I've said this on video. I've said this when I was in Georgia. Vote. If you've already voted, check with your family members, your co-workers, the seniors in your area. If they didn't vote and they need a ride, give them a ride. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we have to get everyone to the polls. And
they don't just have to vote Democrat either, because
I didn't tell nobody who to vote for.
You keep saying Dems.
Well, the Republican, let's put it this way. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. But
no, I wouldn't vote for anybody that Trump supports, but I'm saying, I'm thinking Joe Pinion.
Right.
That's why.
Right. But if you're happy on a national level with the Republican-controlled House, first off, that's another thing I saw on MSNBC. This is one of the first times that I've seen in my adult life, I can't tell you, but when I was a child, where the winner is so bitter. The Republicans control the presidency, the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court. What are y'all bitter about? Like, y'all won. Like, what are y'all still bitter? Like, they are bitter. Like, you always hear the ones who are not in control talking about they're going to change things. They're going to do these things. The Republicans are running things, and they are bitter. It's like they're still campaigning. You know what I'm saying? It's like, much like, and I'm sorry to bring it up.
They want to get rid of us.
Much like in Mount Vernon race, I believe that there was a point where Richard Thomas, as mayor, even though he said I won by an overwhelming margin, he didn't transfer into the transition from campaigning to governing, and he stayed in campaign mode. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, the election is over. Like,
get to work.
It's time to get to work. So, like, that's what I see with the Republicans. So, but what I was saying is, if you are happy with the way the country is run, the way the Kavanaugh thing happened, the way the Republican control President, House, Senate, and Supreme Court are, then do what you do. If you're not, then you know what to do. You understand what I'm saying? If anybody who's not control, there are Republicans telling people to vote Democrat so they can lose the House and Senate because Trump is out of control.
Oh, yeah. I would be one.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, wow. So I just really, I thought it was important. If lines were like that on day 10 of early voting, I would think that helps Abram. Yes, Charles Stern, I believe it does. And the early polls, if you're going by the polls, the latest polls show that she's up 2%. But the dangerous thing.
But he's closing in on her.
Well, no, he was up. Now she's up 2%. It was 40. It was 40.
I thought
it was 47.
I thought she was higher.
It was 49 him and 47 her. Now they're showing her 49 and him 47. But it doesn't matter until she hits 50. If she doesn't hit 50,
51.
Just 50. She has to hit 50. One of them, because there's a libertarian that has 5 or 6. So they're both not going to hit 50.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to add, it really doesn't matter. percentage of votes that she has to get should be greater than the margin of error. In other words,
Right.
if she get 50%, but you could still have a margin of error of like plus or minus 2.
Right.
So could what appears to be 50% could actually be like 48% or
Well, that's why I said.
47.2.
Well, that's why when I was in Georgia, I was like, y'all need to take her over 50. Over 50.
Well over, yes.
Y'all need to take her
She
over.
needs at least a 5-point margin for any degree of comfort.
Louise said if you were starving to death, you would stand in the typhoon for 2 days. I guess that was a comment about the rain.
Yeah, but well, you were starting to death. People that are going to vote, some of them are not.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, but before I lose the comment on here, Damon wanted me to mention the please join us for the holiday fundraiser, December 13th, 2018 at
Trattoria.
There you, thank you. I never could pronounce that. I like the restaurant, but never pronounce it. 632 at 632 Anderson Hill Road in Harrison. I thought it was Purchase. Dude, I think it's Purchase. New York. From 8 to 11 for retired correction officer Yadar, Yador. Officer Yadar is recovering from a stroke and had to unfortunately retire from the Westchester Department of Corrections due to his current rehabilitation status. This will be a live band, food and fun. If you can't attend, please. There's a donation option. Please donate with as little or as much as you can. Our brother Yadar may have to retire, and he's not forgotten. It takes a united effort from all of us to help ease the process. We're sure whatever you can do will be greatly appreciated by the Yadar family. Most importantly, let's keep him and his family lifted up in prayer. It's in the comment section. There's an Eventbrite link. Click on that, and that will give you all the information to buy tickets to make a donation or whatever.
Let the people say amen.
Amen.
So I wanted to shout that out real quick.
Yeah, that's a Saturday, right? I think because Fridays, I think is the 12th. In any event.
Real quick, so since I didn't do it yet, shout to Louise Shergo, already said her. Donna Nolan, hey Donna.
Hey Donna.
Thea R. Blessed.
Yes.
Sean
Sister
Patterson
Blessed.
Howard, how are you? Charles Stern, Wayne
Charles.
Robinson Sr., Cousin Wayne, what's going on? Thank you for continually, you and Cousin Peter, continually tuning in and watching the show. Cicely Greaves,
Cicely Greaves Vega.
Okay.
My girl.
Shout to Tracy Cates, tuned in, and she said to tell Dr. Bob, sorry I was running around. I wasn't able to listen last week, but she heard that the show was good. So
I missed you, Tracy.
shout out to Gail Baxter on the check-in. I'm gonna see if there was any comments that I missed.
Shout out to Uncle Frank.
Shout out to Frank Trulio.
Kevin
Dina.
Shout to Kevin Hope. Damon said, "Thank you, Lorraine. You're the best."
Thank you, Damon. So are you.
Hello. Donna Nolan, Dr. Bob. Oh, she said, "Hi, Lorraine." He said, "Oh, Dr. Bob, sorry I didn't see you there." Hi. What about you didn't say hi to AJ, Donna?
It
What
was
happened?
the jacket.
Wait, what happened to AJ, Donna? You
She
didn't say
said
hi.
it. She said my favorite man.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh,
shit.
no.
Oh,
You
hello,
got
my
the,
favorite
the,
guy.
the best accolade.
Oh, okay, my favorite guy. I'm so sorry. Medea Evans, what's going on? My homegirl, she lives in Atlanta. She grew up with me in Long Island. Goes way back. So I think I moved out to that community when I was 7. What?
Another person joined us.
Okay, I'm not seeing who. Sandy Barnaby, what's going on? I'm here too.
Sandy, how are you?
She said, I'm here.
Shout out to Sandy Barnaby, who's always a supporter of Black Westchester and people before politics since day one.
She gives
Absolutely.
amazing information on
And
Facebook.
a true force to be reckoned with in
Yes.
her own right.
Yes.
I think a stalwart activist in
Actually,
the cause of justice.
Actually, yes, she was out. Yes, Donna Nolan. Yes, I was not paying attention. I'm sorry. It's she holds it down.
Sandy Barnaby, right?
The Anti-Racism Alliance and Quintel Bazemore, Ossining Town, whatever they call it, City Council. he's a city councilman, but they call it town.
Right.
Town council.
It's not town council. It's town something else. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's another word. I don't remember what the towns do, but he's a city councilman in Ossining.
Yes.
Shout to him. Another brother up there doing
Maybe
doing,
a
doing
trustee.
things. Trustees, I think it is
the
called
trustees
trustee.
up there.
I think it's called like
That's
town
it.
town
That's
trustee or
it.
something like that. Yeah. So shout to him. But yeah, Sandy does her thing. And then me and Damon went to one of the Anti-Racism Alliance, I guess conferences type things or whatever. Her daughter's taking up the mantle where she left off. Her daughter's, I think, heading it now, and her daughter is holding it down. She was very strong. She was, I forgot what the topic was that day, but she was, speaking to all of us. It was a strong presentation. It was like, you definitely strong genes. You can definitely tell.
You mentioned Austin, and good luck to Omar Herrera, remember?
Yeah,
He's still running for mayor.
Village trustee.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, he's on
running in
another
general.
line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, shout to, say his name again.
Omar Herrera.
Herrera. There you go. Shout out to Omar Herrera. Definitely came on here. Definitely a great interview. We need
He's
more
out
young,
there doing his thing. He's working hard.
We need young people like that that's focused like that to, like, he is the future. Win or
Yeah.
lose this election, he is the future.
He's a trustee now.
Yeah,
anyway.
well, he's already trustee, but he's running for
mayor.
Running for mayor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still he has shout out to Marvin Church who's in there. And Sandy said the thing was achieving racial equality. I guess that
Equity.
Equity. That was the topic that day.
Shout out to my man Matumbo Muhammad, one of my day ones from 590, brother who I've share a long history with. Wonderful
I like
childhood
his
memories.
name.
Yes.
Cool.
Charles Stern wanted me to
Matumbo.
mention Mount Vernon Town Hall about sewers Monday, tomorrow, November 5th at 6 p.m. at the Riverside Memorial Chapel, 21 Broad Street, Mount Vernon. And then he highlighted Mount Vernon Heights Church. That's Reverend the Cohen's church. But it's at the Riverside Memorial Chapel. That's where the Fleetwood
On Broad
Citizens.
Street, yeah.
That's the Fleetwood Citizen Societies usually have their meetings and functions there, their gatherings. So shout out to the Fleetwood Citizen Society. Shout out to the Charlie Cahill. Sandy said being accountable for the negative institutional outcomes that are out of control. I guess that was the rest of what the topic was. But all I know was it was very powerful that day. It was early in the morning, and I had just pulled an all-nighter working, and I was fighting to stay awake, but I made it though. I was like engaged, like even tired. I was engaged. Shout out to brother Ken Bright.
Bright.
Thank you for showing up Thank you all for showing up every Sunday night. We all need this education. We all need this time together. You have built a news community like no other. Disregard the part about Mount Vernon Heights. Okay, yeah, I figured that, Charles. So I was at the Riverside, what did I say, Memorial Chapel. Charlie Cahill, thumbs up.
Charlie Khalil.
What did I say? Yes.
Cahill.
I apologize.
It's very close. It's very close.
I
Sounds the same.
apologize. You can't get me for these names. I'm horrible.
Charlie Khalil is doing an amazing job with Broadway Community Center in Yonkers.
Absolutely.
He started it up all by himself with his wife. They got an amazing daycare going. I'm part of the board. We've got a great team going, and eventually he'll be in here. Like he told you, as soon as he's ready, he'll be in here to talk about it.
Well, when you're ready, hit Lorraine, and we'll definitely set that up.
Wonderful. That was quite an accomplishment.
Now, before we switch off the election, I monopolized the time about what I wanted to talk about, Bob. I know you have some concerns about the election, and I want say whatever you need to say to the people about the upcoming election.
I mean, there's a myriad of concerns that I think we all have about particular policy issues, but undoubtedly what seems to be the overarching concern that we all share in common is our concern that the president's divisive rhetoric could indeed threaten an already tenuous kind of unity that we have across the nation. What makes his rhetoric especially alarming is the fact that he continues to whip up a kind of racist frenzy almost that has targeted our people of all different racial, ethnic groups, religious groups, and indeed, as everyone knows, there's a good widespread belief that it's because of this that is rhetoric that has fueled the uptick in violence that we've seen, right-wing violence that we've seen here in the United States. And, you know, probably the most outrageous incident as of late is, of course, the president's sort of caravan commercial. I think it's instructive. I actually had, although I heard a good deal of discussion of the caravan commercial, I had a hard time tracking it down earlier today and finally did on YouTube. And I thought it would be instructive for our audience members to watch it and see just how, as you said the other night, AJ, just how diabolical the president's use of racially tinged rhetoric really is, and the kind of danger that it really does pose. As you said the other night, AJ, just how diabolical the president's use of racially tinged rhetoric really is, and the kind of
volume is up on that one. Let me go back to the screen. Yeah, volume off. Okay, there we go. Make it bigger. Bear with me, folks. Just
okay, because I'm looking at the screen.
I'm looking too. I'm like,
there it is. Okay.
No, because what happened is I didn't turn the volume down, and we were echoing, because it's the same thing the stream runs on. So, okay, so we're going to start this. I'm just going to play a clip with what he says, and then the commercial.
Below, and you get all that today.
Donald Trump's latest campaign ad, possibly one of the last campaign ads for these midterms, might just be the most racist in our lifetime. Let's watch.
Step out of the hallway. Break up soon, kill more. See, the only thing that prepared is if I can just kill two. I'm waiting to kill more.
He says he wants to apply for pardon for the felony he committed, the attempt of murder.
Okay, so Donald Trump tweeted that video out with this caption: "It is outrageous what the Democrats are doing to our country. Vote Republican now. Vote.gop. Don't actually go to the website." So, look, that's obviously horrible in a number of different ways. There's sort of the historical context. There's the actual facts of what is asserted in the video. What would you like to start with?
Well, I want people to understand, before we get into the specifics of that ad and give you the context.
So I wanted to hear what he had to say about it, though. I thought he was going to give some proper dialogue on it, but go ahead.
No, I just want the audience members to firstly have a look at it and to understand that, that the language here is far beyond the bounds of what's acceptable in mainstream American politics.
Wait. Hold on. So, Atif, have you confirmed this? I need to make sure that this is confirmed before I announce this. Hit me back right now. Let me know that you have officially confirmed this before I read it. Go ahead, Bob. I want to read that, but I want to make sure it's confirmed.
Yeah. So I was going to say that we have a really flagrant example of the kind of racist appeals that the president has desperately begun to use in order to try to shore up whatever kind of control he will have over the Congress following Tuesday's election. Moreover, I also included a link to a video of the infamous Willie Horton ad. We don't need to show it. I hope that is self-evident to everyone that the depiction of Latinos as a throng and a horde of invaders that is trying to tear down the gates that separate Americans from chaos and safety is, again, absolutely unacceptable, an anathema to our traditions, and is for this reason alone. This has been really the gist of the president's appeals for the past 2 years. And I urge everyone, Republican and Democratic alike, to vote a straight ticket that at least rejects any Republican candidate. The reason that the president has been able to get away with this type of outrageous behavior is precisely because Republicans have stood fast, stood pat, while and allowed the president essentially to engage in the most extreme, most outrageous behavior with nary a word, because the president supports the agenda of low taxes and deregulation and packing the Supreme Court and our judicial system with conservative jurists. The price is too high to pay, everyone. It could well be that we may not have the kind of liberal democracy that we have really striven for as a nation almost from the beginning of our history. And so if y'all are concerned about the sanctity of our democratic institutions, I'd suggest everyone to get out and vote on Tuesday for any other candidate except a Republican. And I mean that everywhere.
Real quick, so I'm confirming something because we have some breaking news, and the proof of it is being sent to me now, and I want to have that so I can read that with the thing. But Atif Khalil is sending me something right now for a story that he's breaking for Black Westchester, and he just sent me the letter.
Is that in Mount Vernon?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so first shout out to Cynthia. We gave you a big shout out in the beginning of the show. After the show, listen to the beginning of the show. We bigged you up. Who else? The Future Society. Thank you for tuning in. So Atif K. Coleman, Atif Khalil on Facebook, has posted breaking news that Media Magic sent an eviction notice to vacate the Dole Center as of November 13th, and said we will have a full report following this broadcast. And he sent me the letter, and I'll try to get that post that up in a second.
What is the Dole Center? What's in there? What?
So the Dole Center is one of the main community centers in Mount Vernon, located on 6th Avenue on Mount Vernon South Side.
Right around the corner from me. When you
okay.
When you cross street, if you go to the next block, right there on the corner.
Yeah. That I had asked you before.
Has a rather odd-looking piece of artwork. Looked like a
in the front
bent magnet or something. I haven't figured out whatever it is. But in addition to that, so the Dole Center has a number of some office space that it allows various community groups to use.
Well, it has, in addition to Senator Jamal Bailey having an office there, the Nesters organization, New Flex, is there. There are senior programs there. Brother Ayers that was here, he does the boxing program in the basement.
I need to get over there.
There are a lot of programs there. I will get you all that information, but for right now, I just want to show you the official letter.
Who owns it?
The city of Mount Vernon. This letter comes from Richard Thomas Mayer, Lawrence Bakari, Corporation Counsel, Assistant Counsels, and Legal Investigators, City of Mount Vernon, New York Department of Law. Can you see it? Oh, yeah. October 12th. Okay, this is a little day. EBT Educational Productions, EBT Educational the Dole Center. Attention, Eric V. Trait Sr. This is to inform you are to vacate your office space located within the Dole Center on or before November 13th. We want to thank you for your participation in the city's efforts at the community center. We will be reassigning the space in question in the near future. Be sure to have vacated the offices by November 13th. So is this just the president who has to vacate?
Just Media Magic. Media Magic, that organization.
Okay. we're going to
not the entire docent.
right, because that's what I was very so. Atif is working on this as we speak. I just wanted to show you the letter. That there is a letter to back up what was being said. We'll be working on that story overnight and hopefully early this week. You know, when we're able to get you more on that. Damon, go back and look at the letter. I posted it.
He's just trying to figure out who's the person that runs CBT.
Yeah, but it was in the.
It was in the letter.
It was in the letter. Hold on.
Eric Treat Jr.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay, stop. Okay, one more time. With the letter here. Swipe. Okay, Eric V. Tait, T-A-I-T Jr., President of EVT Educational Productions, I'm sorry, which I think is Media Magic. I understand this letter was CC'd to the Recreation Department. Oh, the Recreation Department uses, Recreation Department control is under the umbrella of the Recreation Department. And this was also CC'd to the Police Department. So we will find out more about this, but this is actually, and I'm being told that they're not planning on vacating the offices by that time. So there will definitely be some sort of story.
And that's why they CC the Police Department, because they kind of knew.
Right, so we will shout to Atif. I didn't really get to him when we was talking about everybody who has been a very big asset, who's been covering a lot of the Mount Vernon news, specifically as a Mount Vernon resident, who started an organization called Save Mount Vernon, and who has been doing a lot of good work. So Atif, keep me in the loop after the show, and we will bring you this story. But I just, since he shared it, and obviously it hasn't broke news yet, this is breaking news. So we will be on that. Exactly, Lorraine. I'm not sure what you said, but Atif said exactly.
Hi, Joe.
So we're talking about elections, and we do have one person that's running in the current seat election in Yonkers for assemblyman, and
90th.
The 90th district, and when we had both of the other people running for the office, Coach Nicodemo and Nader, Joe running on the Republican ticket said that he would meet the winner of the Democratic primary on here for a debate. We asked both of those candidates. Now, Coach Nicodemo ended up backing out for whatever reason, and Nader went on to win the primary. But both of the candidates on the air said that they would most definitely meet Joe on this show for a debate.
He said it to a lot of places.
So I'm saying, but he said on the air here that he would come back here and debate and have a forum, whatever it is we want to have. I did send an email to Nader Sage, which didn't get responded to, and then Joe came back here and personally issued a challenge, challenging him to come. We have not heard back from Nader Sage's office, but the election being Tuesday, we're going to give Joe 20 minutes or so. I mean, it's not his fault that the other people didn't show, so I promise that they could come back, and I'm going to let him have 20 minutes to talk about why you should elect him. And also, but without further ado, introducing Assembly candidate Joe Pinion. Also a Headline News and CNN guest commentator, which we've had him on the show as that as well. And we're going to have him back on. Win or lose, we're going to definitely have him back on because of his knowledge and commentating skills, and that he uses for Headline News and CNN. And we're blessed to have him, talk about politics.
And he's a Republican. Politics. And he's a Republican. We don't mind people voting for.
Right. So I know we talked about the Republican upset as far as the national situation and
Now
the
let's
national
talk
control of the House, and you know what? Let me be specific here. One, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. Two, I would not have a problem with the Republican control of the House and the Senate if they had the balls to stand up to the president. You know what I'm saying? Like they're supposed to be the checks and balances. But as long as they've shown in this 2-year period that they are not going to check the president, and that's my problem with all of them got to go. I know they're not all going nowhere, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's why people are pushing for a Democratic control. Now, let me just say the Democrats take the black and brown vote for granted. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not happy with what's going on now, so I think there need to be a change. On the local level, I've often said I vote for the candidate. I've been very vocal, no disrespect to our district attorney, Scarpino, who's from Mount Vernon. But when I was doing the interviews and he talked to us, Bruce Bandage gave us the best interview as far as criminal justice was concerned, and I voted in a losing effort for the Republican for district attorney. Now I support the district attorney we do have, and you know we're going to keep him on his toes, but I believe in voting for the best candidate in every election, and Joe wants to tell you why he is the best candidate in the 90th District Assembly seat, which was formerly held by Shelley Mayers. So without further ado, Mr. Joe Pena.
Welcome back.
Good to be here. Good to be here. As always,
Oh, and Damon wanted everybody to know he voted for Bruce too. So he said I did too. Cicely Green said, happy to see you, Joe. And Margaret Bradbury said, agreed, they are kissing his tuchus only. Damon said, welcome back.
Welcome black.
He said, welcome black. Oops, I mean back, Joe. So
and he gave you the fist up.
Yeah, and he gave you the fist.
My man, right on.
So anyway, again, and you know, I'm just calling it as I see it. We asked Coach Nicodemo, and he said that both of y'all have a definitely, while y'all have different views and stuff, but y'all are, you know, cordial to each other. Y'all are friends or whatever outside of this.
Right.
And he said he would look forward to it. And then he stepped out of it. Then we had Nada on the third try. You know, he came to the show, and he gave a good interview. And he said he had no problem, and he would most definitely come. And I don't know what episode it is, but I'll pull it up tonight. Anybody want to see it? I'll put the video up that he did say he would meet Joe in a debate here on People Before Politics and accept your challenge. And then Joe came on the show himself later and issued a challenge, both in the paper, in the ad, and on the show. And we have not heard from Nada Sage. So I say Joe both can come, and he didn't come, so you're here.
Well, I'm here. So, no, obviously it's always good to be here with you guys. I actually have to give a shout out to your cousin Miriam.
Oh, Pepsi Martinez, Miriam.
She is somewhere in Yonkers.
I told her to contact you.
Hitting doors as we speak. So,
and recruiting people. Yeah, she's recruiting people to help her
so
with the door. Yes.
This stuff getting hot. So I see Bob looking like, okay, here go that air, but it's getting hot in here and the equipment gets hot. So.
No, I think one of the most rewarding things about running for office is just the amount of people that will find you out of nowhere, that will come and volunteer and give of their time and themselves to really work towards better outcomes for all people. And so I think that, you know, to me, that's the most humbling part about this process is just the opportunity to talk to so many people who, again, share a commitment and a vision to seeing the city move forward, seeing outcomes for people who have been marginalized change. So I obviously have to give her a shout out and all the other people who are somewhere in the dark right now trying to make sure we can make a joyful noise on Tuesday.
Now, I want to say, and I've said this to you personally, it's an uphill battle because, you know, it's real tribal and it's a Democrat-heavy area that you're in. At the Impact event, is that who you put? Impact?
Impact, yeah.
Yeah, at the Impact event, Y'all both spoke, and it seemed like it was a debate on one side. It was supposed to be a forum, but y'all both spoke, and I spoke to a lot of people. Lorraine and I were outside afterwards, and a lot of people were that, I don't know if they were familiar with you or not familiar with you, but they were impressed by you. But they were saying that it's a shame that you were running on the Republican, and we had this conversation on the Republican ticket. Why didn't you run on the Democrat ticket? You know, but so on and so forth. So,
but not necessarily all of them said that. A lot of people were like, you know.
No, there was a few. I didn't say everybody. But there was a few.
Okay, because there were some that are willing to that I spoke to that were willing to cross party lines.
Right, and they were impressed.
Because they were impressed with you.
Overall, they were impressed. But my point is, there are some people that do have a problem with you running on the Republican ticket.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and that's why I always bring that up. So you know.
And look, that's going to exist. Like I said, if that was going to be the be all and end all, then I shouldn't have gotten in this race. But I firmly believe that there's something truly wrong in our politics when we resign ourselves to simply, all that we require of a candidate is to simply slap the proper letter in front of their name on a ballot. To me, that is fundamentally asking to be lied to. We've been asking to be lied to for a very long time as a nation, and particularly amongst communities of color, where we just literally do not hold people's feet to the fire, or we completely just shut them down simply because of the fact that they belong to the right party or the wrong party. And so I got in this race beyond saying that I believe that my hometown is in trouble. Beyond believing that I truly think that the next 2 years in Yonkers will determine the next 40 years in Yonkers as far as the decisions that get made in Albany. But on a deeper level, because of the fact that we have been going about things in a manner that is fundamentally not going to allow us to move forward. And I think that in this moment, more so than ever before, there has never been a time where it was more important to stand on your principles, irrespective of the personal hurdles that it may present to you. And so to me, I thought it would be fundamentally disingenuous even to run as an independent when I've spent the last 2 years standing on platforms, on cable news, getting paid to stand on cable news with an R next to my name. I think that there's something fundamentally, inauthentic about that. And I think that if we can get to the point in society, if more individuals can just come forward and say, here I am, I believe in criminal justice reform, I believe in fighting for people who are marginalized, I not necessarily have the same idea about the methodologies, but I'm committed to the outcomes, I'm committed to the work, and judge me for who I am, and let the chips fall where they may. I think we can get to that point. I think that we'll see the things that bother all people about politics on both sides of the aisle can start to be diminished.
And I also we had a conversation over the phone when I was still in Atlanta, and one of the things I said, and the reason people say that about, why didn't you switch to the Democratic Party to run? I mean, that is the type of thing that gets done here in Westchester. Janet DeFiore was a Republican who switched to the Democratic Party to win. I understand that Spano might have been a Republican. I heard that as well. And several other situations. That's kind of like the way it goes down.
Even in this race. I mean, look, the reality is, my opponent is no political novice. He's run for office 4 times. 4 times the people of Yonkers have said no thank you. Ran for office in 1983 as a right-to-life candidate and Republican candidate. Ran in 2003 as wanted to become the mayor of Yonkers on the independence line because all the political parties were corrupt. Ran in 2006 for state senate, saying that the Independence Party was engaged in pay-for-play politics. Ran in for, in 2007 for mayor again on the independence line, got thrown off the ballot by a judge for clear and convincing evidence of petition fraud. So again, I mean,
wow, I didn't know that.
This is what we're dealing with here, in Yonkers. And now apparently he believes that, he can quench this 35-year quest to get elected to something, anything, riding on a blue wave in a party that he's never been a member of. And so to me, I think that, I have challenged the voters and challenged myself to say that, look, I don't care what the issue is that you care about. I just ask that you hold me to the same standard that you hold my opponent to. And that to me is a challenge. That has been our quest from the beginning when we got in this thing in March, to say that I'm here to address your questions. Whatever your issues are, let's talk about them. But whatever your takeaways are, make sure that you're requiring the same thing of all the people that are in the race. Because if we don't hold people accountable, if you're somehow going to be demanding of me on an issue but not demanding on the other person in the race on that same issue, simply because they've been around for a long time or they got the right party in front of their name, then I promise you that things are never going to change because you're asking to be lied to. We've been lied to for far too long, and the outcomes have not been addressed for far too long.
I also want to say, so at the MPAC's, I guess, candidate forum, one of the things, now I don't have a horse in the race. I'm not in the district, so I couldn't vote if I wanted to. But I did listen, and what I did hear, I heard you address a few issues and talk about why you were the candidate they should vote for. What I heard on the other side, and I can only I'm reporting what I heard not a reason to vote for him because he was a better candidate, not a reason to vote for him because he was a qualified candidate, but a reason not to vote for you because you're a Republican and the Democrats have control of will have control over in the Senate, and in the Assembly, and that you as a Republican, if you vote a Republican in, he will never be able to get things done because they're the majority.
Yeah, I mean
that wasn't an argument for me as far as that you're the better candidate. That's what I get to. What's your qualifications? What's this one's qualifications? Right. What makes you the better candidate? Why should we vote for you? And why? And his reason to not vote for you was because you weren't a Democrat. That was basically the sum of most of what he said.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be very clear. I've said it many times. This state has had Democratic rule in both the Assembly and the Senate. It did not lead to a any type of windfall coming to Yonkers. We've had control of the Senate for Republicans. Didn't lead to a windfall for the city of Yonkers. At the end of the day, it's like I said, at some basic level, we have to acknowledge the fact that it doesn't seem to matter who is in power. The only thing that remains is that the people of Yonkers get less than we deserve. And so at some point, that's no longer about political control at the local level. We can have a conversation about what's happening nationally in this country. That's a whole different conversation. But when it comes to what's been happening in Yonkers, my entire life, you're looking at 34, 35 years in this city, irrespective of who is in power, they find ways to give the people less than they deserve. They find ways to give our children less opportunity than they deserve. They find ways to make it harder and harder for the seniors that live here to stay here. That's not partisan. That's just business as usual in Yonkers based on neglect that is systemic coming from Albany. And we need to, again, figure out who has the plan to change these things. And I've said many times, if you're a person who is concerned about the fact that only 19% of the kids that attend our Yonkers public schools are black, but they make up 40% of the suspensions. They make up 50% of the arrests that happen in our schools. Let's be very clear about the fact that the person who is touting their experience as president of the school board, as a trustee for the school board, was on that board for many, many years and didn't say boo about any of those issues. And still, throughout this campaign, hasn't said boo about any of those issues. So these are the things, again, trying to get people to understand that we have a chance to have a choice. I'm not sitting here asking you to choose your opinion. I'm asking the people of Yonkers to look in the mirror and choose themselves. That we have a choice right now to sit here as a city, that this can't continue to happen, and it only happens because we allow it to happen. And we just keep letting these candidates that get anointed by the powers that be slide in, unopposed, unquestioned, and it's why after years and years of neglect, we are literally on the brink. And don't let anybody tell you that we're not on the brink, because I promise you we are.
Bob.
That was deep.
I have to begin by saying that I think one of the most disingenuous things that assessments that we could offer up of the contemporary history of the U.S. political system is the extremely divisive role that the Republican National Party has played in both establishing the parameters of policy and also the rhetorical appeals that are designed to mobilize voters. Although Joe is right, he would, if successfully elected, would be at a great distance from the levers of national power. Nevertheless, he if the voters elect him, it is a tacit approval of the general framework under which the Republican Party is currently operating, A, and B, more importantly, party unity generally requires subordinate members of the party to quelch their personal opinions, to hold their tongue on important matters that might cause them to come into direct conflict and criticism with state and national leaders. For that reason, whatever Joe's personal qualities may be, I think that the president poses an existential threat not just to America's liberal democratic traditions, but quite honestly, the president has let it be known in no uncertain terms that he wishes to dismantle the entire rule-based liberal order. And if we have a return to might as the dominant principle in international affairs, it will eventually trickle down to domestic politics as well. I fear that should we not send a resounding, unequivocal message that the president's policies are thoroughly rejected and repudiated, it may be too late for us. And so for me personally, Joe already knows this. And I mean this with all sincerity, brother, because everyone will tell you, AJ, and you remember my response, my reaction when I saw you come in the studio the first time.
No. Shout to Coach. Shout to Coach Nicodemo who's listening.
I am well aware of how unique.
David K. Jones said, "No big words this week, Bob."
Nice music.
Okay, hold on. Real quick, people before politics, please state your name and your purpose for calling.
Hi, AJ, it's Gail. I have a question for Joe.
Okay.
Hey, how are you, Gail?
Hi, honey. Listen, recently, I'm sure you're aware of the town hall meeting that was held last week to extend term limits. And I'm very curious as if you did have an opinion, since they've already taken the vote and the charter will be changed, how would you have handled something like that?
Well, I think, again, as I've reiterated many times, I think we have to know who to blame for what aspect of our misery. To that extent, your assembly person can't do anything about, term limits at the city level. Having said that, my
No,
opinion,
I wasn't talking in your capacity.
Yeah, no,
I was saying because you live in Yonkers.
No. Personally,
what's your opinion as a stakeholder?
Yeah, as a stakeholder in Yonkers, I think that the people of Yonkers have spoken not once but twice to say that they wanted to make sure that we were not doing exactly what happened last week. And so I think it's disheartening and slightly disingenuous when people who had the ability to put the issue to the people wait until weeks after they can no longer put it to the people to say that they are acting in the interest of the people. I just don't think, I think that is literally, part of the reason why people become so disenfranchised or so disengaged when it comes to politics, because they just don't believe that people are working in what they believe are their best interests. And
I have one more question. I have a lot of questions, but I know you're going for the seat that was held by Shelley Mayer.
That's correct.
And Shelley was a pretty popular assembly person. What one thing, after you studied her record, did she make the biggest mistake and disappoint the people who live in Yonkers?
Well, I think that, number one, when you look at the fact that all of these individuals who represent us, from Shelley across the board, effectively greenlit a formula when we went and authorized the full gambling here in Yonkers, or not the full gambling, but at least went to the expansion of gambling here in Yonkers. A formula that literally gives us 5% and gives the state 80% of the resources that come out of that casino. Yeah, Empire Casino, quietly as it's kept, makes more money for the state than the next 6 racinos combined. There are only 8 in the state, and it makes more than the next 6. So when you look at it from that perspective, it is a cash cow that brings joy and opportunity all around this state, but not right here at home. We can't get Central Avenue paved. We can't get new schools built to the proper tune. I mean, you got places like Buffalo, which again, I mean, I've had basically every member of our delegation tell us that, oh, well, Buffalo is needier than us. I said, well, that is true. It also costs less money to live in Buffalo. The electric costs are lower. The housing costs are lower. The cost of milk is lower. The cost of gas is lower. Everything you need to function in Buffalo is lower, except the amount of money they spend per student, which is $35,000 a year. So you explain to me how you're paying the teachers less, costs less to maintain the schools, costs less to run the electricity in the schools, but you're spending more money per student, and somehow that's the justification you give us to make sure that the children that live in a place where the cost of living is nearly twice of that are getting less than that, and they're getting a 70% reimbursement here versus a 98% reimbursement in Buffalo. To me, the ability to year after year after year rubber stamp budgets that bring pain and misery to the people who put their trust in your hands, to me is the single largest reason why I got in this race.
Well, I wanted to just briefly tell you
last question, Gail.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You can ask. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say to Joe, Michael Spano, our current mayor, is the person in the capacity when he was in Albany as a lobbyist, came up with that deal with Empire City. And it was sealed and glue, and I could never understand why, as the mayor of Yonkers, he didn't have more to say about that ratio of how much money Empire gives to the city of Yonkers.
Well, yeah, I think it's you have to separate the two, right? Because there's the amount of money that is given from the casino, where you're talking about property taxes and things of that nature. That is a deal that is made between the entity and the city. That is wholly separate from the amount of funding which is put in a formula, which dictates the amount of money that a host city such as Yonkers gets, 5%, versus the amount of money that the state gets, being 80%, and then surrounding counties getting 5% and the county getting 10%. So that
the original amount was $25 million. Period.
Right. That was a flat rate, but again, you're talking about that what was organized before all that stuff happened. What I'm talking about is, how do you, again, after we as a city vote for the expansion of gambling, right, and now you end up having, subsequent to that, us realizing what we know are going to be the rising costs of a city. The ability to not have a fully vested conversation about the fact that we are getting the short end of the stick across the board when it comes to casino. Not even just Empire Casino, but also the amount of money that we get from the lotto payout. I mean, we're the 4th largest city in the state, and we are 19th on the list of direct lotto payouts, which, again, this is money that's supposed to be going towards education. Well, how are we 19th on the list, 4th largest city, fastest growing school district in the entire state outside of New York City, 27,000 students that depend on our public school system, and we're not having a more robust conversation about the things that are embedded in the policy, the poison pills in the policy that are making sure that we're not getting treated fairly. So,
I want to thank Gail for calling. I got a couple of other questions I want to get in from other people.
Okay,
but I support you. I thank you for your support as always. I wanted to go. I have a comment and a question. Donna Nolan, she says she has to say she spoke to a lot of politicians about the illegal guns, what needs and can be done, and out of all, Joe was the only one who listened and had ideas. Bella Betty said, very intelligent man, what is his plan to correct this problem? He raises very important issues. He's the one person that could do differently. Party doesn't mean anything to me, especially in Yonkers. He's pointing out issues. How will he address them, the issues that you brought up earlier?
Look, I think that there are simple ways to address things. I mean, look, I understand the frustration that Dr. Bob is expressing. We've had this conversation many times. And if you're a person who just fundamentally feels that, well, let me just start over. I'm not on Donald Trump's Christmas card list. And I don't think that he cares one way or another what happens to the assembly seat in the city of Yonkers. And I think that's the point.
Exactly.
The point is that we get so frustrated with what's happening that in many ways we spite ourselves. I think fundamentally that if you're a person who just simply cannot bring yourself to vote for a person with an R next to their name, I understand that pain. As somebody who has advocated, for years, trying to make the big tent party more hospitable to people that look like me, to say that we need to have a seat at both tables. I understand that pain and that frustration. and understanding what it feels like when it seems as if there are a group of individuals who are hostile towards you simply because of the virtue of who you are. I get that completely. But to me, my charge has always been to make sure that we are investing in the policy that is going to be making sure that the outcomes get better. And when I talk about the policy that is detrimental to the people of Yonkers for 40 years, that doesn't have boo to do with the President of the United States and everything to do with the fact that year after year after year, the people that we trust to do things on our behalf have let us down. So specifically to the question you're talking about, how can we actually affect this change, right? What am I proposing that my opponent is not proposing? I say, look, number one, the biggest problem that we have with our schools is that we don't have accountability for what happens in our schools, right? And so again, the first thing that we can do to actually restore accountability to the people of Yonkers is to ask the state of New York to do for Yonkers what they did for New York City, which is to allow the mayor to have control over the hiring and firing of the superintendent, right? That changes things across the board.
Doesn't the mayor already do that?
No.
Who
mayor
hires
the
the
mayor
superintendent?
appoints 7 people to the board. The 7 people on the board hire the superintendent, and then in theoretically, the mayor has no authority over hiring and firing. And so again, we've created this dynamic. I think I've said it here before, where you have a city council president who says that the school board is to blame for the problems in our schools. The school board says that, well, no, it's not us. It's miscommunications with the mayor's office. The mayor's office says the superintendent, and everyone's sitting there pointing at each other, and nothing gets solved. And so I think if we can, again, at a cost of nothing to the state, because the state legislature is the only body that can actually give the mayor that type of authority, say, look, let the mayor hire and fire the superintendent. And then to say, let's not have him appoint 7 people, let's have him appoint 3 people. And let the duly elected members of our city council appoint 3 people. And let the city council president's office appoint 1 person. And now there is skin in the game across the board. So if you're mad about the fact that the schools on the west side aren't being funded the same way as the school on the east side, where 600 kids from one school get put in a private building and 600 kids from another school get shoved into a high school building with kids that are twice their age, if you're mad about that, guess what? In a system where we have actually given accountability across the board, you can do something about it. If you're mad about the fact that you're saying that, oh, guess what, that our children, that there's discrepancies about how children of color are treated versus non-children of color, guess what? People have skin in the game. These are actual concrete things that can be done that, again, literally don't cost a dime. But you're not going to hear my opponent talking about that because my opponent is literally being placed there to protect the interests of the powers that be. So, again, those are the things that I want to be focused on things, okay, how do you pay for it? Got 450 acres of state-owned land here in Yonkers. We should be receiving multi-millions of dollars on each year because, as I've said here before, there are across this state, the state pays property taxes on the value of the land to the tune of 90% of all the land, and yet they've decided that Yonkers will be tax exempt across the board. Not a single dime of property taxes paid on any of the 450 acres. So there are many ways. Don't be lied to. Don't be tricked. The reason that we are not getting what we deserve is because people in Albany simply decided they're not going to give us what is owed to us. And until we have people who are going to go to Albany and stand and deliver, to demand that we be treated fairly, it doesn't matter what party is next to their name. And so to me, that's the challenge.
So real quick, and Bob, let me get Charles Stern question in, and I'm going to go to you. Before that, Damon Jones said, poison pills in policy. I like that, Joe. Charles Stern says, will you support increasing the current limit on the number of charter schools in New York State? And I need you to be brief with your answer.
The number of charter schools in New York State?
You increase the limit that the legislator, the New York State government.
The problem isn't the number of charter schools. The problem is the concentration of the charter schools. The hard truth is that, I mean, again, for the people of Yonkers, charter schools aren't the problem. Anyone that tries to make, you know, the one charter school that of K through 8 that we have here, the scapegoat for the plight of the 27,000 students that we have in our public school system, is pulling the flim-flam. That's not the case. The case that we have is that we're underfunded. So to me, I wouldn't support raising it. And to me, again, it's not a matter of saying that we don't currently have enough capacity to have the charter schools the kids need. It's just a matter of saying that we're not actually having the best practices we know work. We know what works for children, and we're not giving it to them. You know, we know for a fact that 4 to 6 are the danger hours for our children. And yet we've continued to put together budgets and have mismanagement. You know, a $50 million accounting error that literally brought this city to its knees, which happened while my opponent was the president of the school board. I mean, people forget about this. That is single-handedly why we only have 800 kids in after-school sports, down from nearly 4,000 over a 5-year period. I mean, this is the stuff that's happening in Yonkers. And so, again, I respectfully say that there are people in this city that we love, that we have affection for, that we can still invite to the cookout. But at the end of the day, you have to demand results. I have nothing personal against any of the people that represent us at the state level. I think they're all lovely people. But the fact remains they have failed to deliver results. Point blank, period. That's
Bob,
just what it is.
Bob has a question.
So I'm tempted to make
somebody said checkmate. Brenda class.
Hey, Brenda.
Said checkmate. Pepsi Martinez said, hey, y'all. Bella Betty said, thanks for your answer. And I think somebody else said something. Alex Arcaro said, hi, Lorraine, love you.
Hey, love you too.
Shout out to Phyllis Cole Hollis, cousin of mine. Shout out to Tasha Honey D, Tasha Young. Shout out to Mark Stuckey, Pepsi Martinez, and Bob. Go ahead.
So, I'm going
to ask you to make your
no, you may not.
Brief.
No, you may not.
Time-wise.
No,
time-wise.
Mr. Woodson, I've heard you. You would like me to be brief.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank
Okay. So, in essentially what Joe is advocating is that we, in considering his candidacy, ignore both state and national level issues.
Well, just if I can interject briefly, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or fashion that we ignore state issues.
Okay. All right. I'll just say
because
national.
And what I mean by that is saying that specifically, if your heart won't allow you to vote for me because somehow you feel that is an endorsement of what is happening in D.C., logically, from an intellectual standpoint, I would say I can't be mad at you on an emotional level. I would say from an intellectual level, that is not a thread that can be followed. Because again, specifically, when you talk about the issues that impact our children here in Yonkers, the issues that impact our seniors here in Yonkers, and again, I'm not saying the thrust of the party. I'm just saying again, why is it that Yonkers is a tax-exempt haven for the state? Why is it the fact that we sell more lottery tickets than the vast majority of cities across the state and they got us 19th on the list? That's not politics. Why is it that there is a hold harmless provision that literally prevents dollars from going where students are? Because they literally will not allow a school district to receive less money one year than did the previous year, even if enrollment is down 20%, 30%, and you don't recognize that that has a direct correlation to the fact that when you're the fastest growing school district in the state, when school enrollment is down 6% statewide, that is literally killing our children. Those things are not partisan. That's just, again, a legacy of neglect in our city. So I don't want to preempt you because like I said, I have the great amount of respect for your opinion. But what I'm saying is that I almost feel like we're having two different conversations. You're having the conversation saying that I cannot vote for you because this stuff in D.C. is so bad, I just have to send a message, kill them all. And I'm saying if you don't believe...
I didn't use the word kill them.
Well, no,
I'm just saying.
Okay. But I think
that's valid, especially in the current climate of things.
I just want to be clear about that part.
What he's saying?
I got what both of them were saying. I was just interjecting.
You understand what
But what I'm saying is that if you don't also, even if you can't do it, if you don't recognize the value of having an individual who is willing to speak on the issues, cause it what it may, if you don't recognize the value of having somebody who will speak truth to power to his own party, I don't think there is, as much as you say, that it's people are forced to kowtow to the powers that be, I don't think there's anything in my track record that would lead you to believe that I would be a person that would hold my tongue when it comes to what's going to be best for my community and for the people of Yonkers. So again, I think all you can say at the end of the day is, this is who I am. I've been the same person long before I was a candidate. Cared about the issues I care about long before I was a candidate, and have done the work on these issues long before I was a candidate.
If Bob and Lorraine don't have any questions, I want to give them 5 minutes to
I never even finished.
You never finished his statement.
Well, I need to move on though. So go ahead because we want to talk about the rest of the elections too. So go. Okay. You got a few minutes.
man is authentic. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. There's no doubt that Joe is authentic, and Joe, for me to publicly offer praise for the trencency, the sharpness of someone's commentary and knowledge speaks to how much I actually do admire Joe, because Lorraine and AJ know that I instantly recognize you because you had distinguished yourself. So I'm not calling into questions your personal qualifications. I think that you've made it very clear that you're an exceptionally knowledgeable brother. However, the issue that our audience has to consider is what is the appropriate course of action to take when the party that you are affiliated with, it is argued by many, pose a fundamental threat to national security and stability. And in order to answer this question, I want to put it in a broader historical framework where we can look to lessons from the past. And the best example of this is previous efforts to denationalize questions of race relations and its impact on national unity, starting from the post-Reconstruction period forward. Mm-hmm. Most scholarly interpretations will tell you that one of the reasons that Jim Crow, the advances of the Reconstruction period were reversed, and Jim Crow eventually hardened, we saw the rise of lynchings, was precisely because the Republican Party local operatives had decided during the later part of the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century not to weigh in on the question of segregation and the treatment of black people according to race and at the hands of white supremacists. And essentially, allow me to just finish up, John. Essentially, we're being asked to do the same thing if we vote. We would effectively be doing the same thing if we vote for any Republican in this midterm election. We would be saying, okay, can I finish?
Yeah. I'm not saying nothing.
I just want to finish what I have to say because Joe has had a lot of time.
And I haven't had any, and I disagree.
Okay, well, I would like to finish what I'm saying, and you can disagree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wholeheartedly.
Good. You're free. Make your case.
Then I will if you let me.
If everyone would let me finish my thought. Thank you. Because I've been interrupted 3 times now.
That's how many times you've talked.
In any case, the decision on the part of local Republican operatives, who were the party that had abolished slavery, to withdraw its protections and advocacy for the freedoms of black people is precisely what led to the period of Jim Crow, lynchings, and the need for a second civil rights movement. The president's proposal to strip people of birthright citizenship, to detain illegal immigrants, and all of the other frightening kind of proposals that he is advocating these days have to be opposed unambiguously, and no member of the Republican Party is capable of doing this, as recent history has demonstrated. And I don't know how Joe would be any different. And to segue, Lorraine's going to ask what she wants, but we can put this to the question. Return to the question I was asked by Louis Cherico. What do you propose to do in terms of gun control?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that if you look at what Donna Nolan...
And I need your answer to be brief, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've proposed, quite frankly, that we literally have chain of custody. We don't have chain of custody. The problem is not guns. The problem is illegal guns. The issue is that you have guns that fall off the back of a truck on their way from Alabama to Georgia, or Alabama to Chicago, or on the way from Alabama to D.C., and all of a sudden, those guns that were purchased legally are now illegal. On the flip side also, let's be very clear about it. If you look at the form that people have to fill out when they go get a gun, it is a opt-in, right? When you start talking about mental health issues, it is an opt-in, right? The background check that is done for people who want to purchase guns does not include a mental health screening of any kind. The background check is simply a criminal background check. So it has nothing to do with having been going to a therapist, are you on any medications or anything along those lines, right? We have data that is all over the place that can be used blockchain, whatever technology you want to use, that can start to incorporate a more encompassing idea of people's actual state of mind. But it is blocked by people in antiquated methods like HIPAA, which has no actual ability for us to move forward and get engaged in these issues. So again, when they're talking about guns, it's talking about chain of... Do you not understand what I'm saying?
I don't agree with your assertion that HIPAA rules are the primary obstacle to the collection of data about gun and gun violence.
I think HIPAA laws, this is not actually for debate, HIPAA laws prohibit a doctor from sharing the information that would allow the screening process for guns to be denied. HIPAA laws prevent a doctor from telling someone, hey, Jim's been seeing me for 6 months, is contemplating, he has suicidal thoughts, he has homicidal thoughts, and probably Jim shouldn't have a gun, right? That information is prohibited from being shared with law enforcement. It is prohibited from being shared by the people who submit the paperwork for screening because of HIPAA. That's not ambiguous. And so what I'm saying is that if you want to talk about how do we fix this, as I've said many times before, 30 years ago there was no such thing as a special victims unit. Now we understand that crimes have to be investigated differently. 30 years ago we didn't necessarily understand how invasive mental health issues were, and we also didn't understand the threats that the 21st century America would provide. The issue that we can do is to make sure that if the same way that my mother's car can get stolen and somebody can drive that car from New York to California and somebody in California can pull over that person and realize that that car does not belong to them, it belongs to Verona Mae Greenland, that there's the same person who can realize that, oh my goodness, that, hey, I can return that car to you. We don't have that chain of custody with weapons. The same way that I can sell a car to you in the parking lot right now, but I still have a requirement to go to the DMV to tell them, hey, guess what, cancel that registration because that car's not mine anymore. Hey, I'm bringing you these license plates because the license plates no longer belong on that car that you thought was mine. I have given it to AJ, and AJ is now the owner of that vehicle. And similarly, AJ has to call up the insurance company and say, hey, I just bought this car from Joe, and so it is now my responsibility. He has to register that car, and he also has to go and make sure that he gets license plates for that car. That level of chain of custody does not exist around guns.
Okay, so
point blank, period. And I think that we have the ability in New York State to start setting conditions for something along those lines to happen.
Tasha Young from the Westchester Black Political Conference says the problem with legal guns in the hands of domestic terrorists, Pinion says the problem is illegal guns. He is incorrect. The problem is legal and illegal guns. Say legal guns are problematic in the hands of domestic terrorists, or else you're telling a half-truth.
No. Here's the hard truth. We live in New York.
Brief.
We live in New York. We have some of the most stringent gun laws in this country. There are also some common sense stuff we can do. I don't think we need to be having bump stocks going around. I think that's ridiculous. The notion that you can take a gun that is and turn it into a military-grade weapon with some type of addendum is outrageous. But having said that, again, I think that when you talk about domestic terrorist acts, I think that the great many of them that have happened here could have been prevented if, number one, we had chain of custody with weapons, and number two, if we were actually engaging in actually being able to incorporate a larger percentage of the criminal background check and a larger percentage of the mental health aspects that are currently prohibited from being included in the process of screening people.
Lorraine, I know you wanted to say something, and then did you have a comment or question for Joe?
No, you know what? Well, maybe. I'm going to keep it real simple. I'm not going to use the big words because I want my people to understand. First of all, I am a Republican. I am a very proud Republican. I know Yonkers. I was born and raised, and I'm bringing it back to the local level because this is where Mr. Pinion is running in, and this is where it's important as far as I'm concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what it's important to my people, and that's where it's important to people that are reading and are listening, that are stating, let's bring it back to the local level. What's going on with Yonkers? That's where they care about. Now, I used to be a Democratic councilwoman. I worked for 2 Republican mayors, 2 Republican administrations. 25 years I was in the city of Yonkers. I know City Hall inside and out. I know all about the Spanos and every elected official here. I know where the bodies are buried and stuff like that. And I know that just because you're a Republican does not make you a non-entity, does not make you bad, does not make you a Trump or anything like that, because as Republicans for 25 years, the Republican Party was the party that took care of my people in Yonkers. We got a lot of stuff done in the city of Yonkers because of the people in the Republican Party. It wasn't the Democrats, it was the Republicans that ran the city and took care of my people and made a lot of accomplishments. And I think that the progress can continue whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat. A Republican is a human being. They're a person. They have beliefs. They're not all Trump. I'm a Republican. I believe in pro-choice. As far as Trump is concerned, and he says he's pro-choice too, but every single one of these people in the caravans, he wants dead. I guarantee you that much. And he wish they were never born. I guarantee you that much. But that does not trickle down here to Yonkers. And I just suggest that people listen to what's going on. Listen to what Mr. Pinion is saying about what's going on, especially in the school system, what's going on. Like he said, we've had Democrats in power all this time. Nothing has changed. Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time for another new idea, because as far as I'm concerned, when a Republican had control and was taking over, they did an excellent freaking job. And give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'll say this.
I want to get closing remarks.
Closing remarks. I'll say this. Respectfully, Dr. Bob, I think you're a little off guard. I think that the notion that somehow a person like myself being able to go to Albany and articulate to people in a room that you distrust that our criminal justice system is not working for black and brown people is a bad thing, I think is ludicrous. I think the notion that somebody like myself going to Albany to effectively advocate for policies that are historically biased against our city is a bad thing, I think is misguided. I think that at the end of the day, what is most important is having somebody who has a track record of speaking truth to power. My opponent does not have a track record of speaking truth to power. He is the chairman of the Go Along to Get Along Club. That is the hard truth in this race. And so when you want to talk about why things keep going wrong in Yonkers, it's because everybody is looking out for somebody who's got honorable in front of their name and not the people of this great city. That is what's happening here. Sure. So my entire life. And so again, I would submit to the voters of Yonkers that we have a chance to have a choice. I'm going to keep saying it because it's the first time we've had one in a decade about who we send to represent us in the assembly. And I promise you, as I've said before, I have great respect for Senator Mayer. I have great respect for Senator Cousins, even if I disagree with them politically. And I do not think that they're going to get in the room and vote against me simply because I have an R next to my name if I put policies forward that are going to improve their life. And if they do, I have a sinking suspicion they won't have a job much longer, because the people of Yonkers want change, and the people of Yonkers deserve better. And I think that if I have ideas that allow that to happen, irrespective of my policies, irrespective of my party, I believe that it will get done. And I think that anybody who tries to prey on the fears of D.C. to try to get you to vote for somebody that they know won't do the job, that's why we're here.
Matumbo Muhammad said, can't throw them all in the same basket. Both parties have rotten apples. If anybody, and now this is because of the limit of time of the show. There's a conversation that can go on for the next 3 hours. And y'all will probably still be at the same point you are. There are people, again, that I've told you are not going to vote with you because you have an R.
And that's the hard truth.
And I told you that. And it is an uphill battle. And I understand a lot of what Bob's saying. So on that, I'm going to close it there.
You don't understand anything I said?
I respect everything you said. I wasn't disagreeing with you.
He's saying you are with Joe.
Right. I said the opposing.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Sorry, Bob.
So anyway, as I was saying, it's a conversation that could go on further. The election is this Tuesday. Y'all have a decision to make. I tried my best to bring both the candidates running so you could hear both sides. The other candidate didn't accept, so this is the candidate that you got to hear from.
And that's something people need to take a look at. Black and brown people need to take a look at which candidate accepted it and which candidate thought that we were worthy.
Okay. And anybody who still wants to, because there's plenty more questions. Anybody who wants to get at you, wants to find out more about you, social media.
You can go to facebook.com/pinion4ny. That's Pinion, Pinion, the number 4, NY. We've literally been leaving breadcrumbs since March, so we've got plenty of videos literally telling the entire story of this campaign, why I'm in this race, why I want to fight for seniors like my mother who have called this city home, why I want to fight for seniors like my grandmother who's 98 years old, making sure that, she can get the long-term care that she deserves. Seniors all over this city aren't getting what they deserve in that regard. So, to me, you can get in touch with us on Facebook, our website, www.joepinion.com. You can go on there and select a time to talk to me. There's a link there that says Talk to Joe. I'm not here to duck your questions. I'm here to answer and address the issues because the stakes are too high and this election is too important, and continuing to do business as usual in Yonkers will literally bring this city to its knees once and for all.
I applaud you for coming. I thank you for your time. I tell people, I can't tell you who to vote for. That's a decision. I can't vote in this election. I try to bring as many of the, issues up, and I let everybody in. And I actually now have a whole newfound respect for what's my man who is the host of Meet the Press. For being able to navigate through time and opposing opinions. Because, that's not easy. That's really not easy. But I think it makes for good commentary, and then you get to hear all points of view. I mean, you definitely got to hear several points of view. You, the listener, got to, make up your mind on what it is that you heard that you like and what you didn't like. It's good that we continue to have this dialogue. And I welcome you to come back, win or lose. You know what I'm saying? And continue, this dialogue.
Can I just answer Gail real quick? She says, Lorraine, the reason your people, quote unquote, your people were taken care of under 2 Republican administrations is because of your advocacy. But you know what, though? It was my advocacy, but these 2 Republican administrations listened.
Okay.
And that's the key.
Okay, so there you have it, Gail. We're coming to the close of the show. I want to thank you for coming. I'm going to try to deal with... Yeah, we have to wrap up and talk about other things outside of the Yonkers election.
All right.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for coming, because this can go on for the next 3 hours.
Okay.
So yeah. I want to thank you for coming. I want to remind everybody to go out and vote this Tuesday, November 6th. It's a very important election, nationwide, citywide, locally, on all levels. Everyone needs to get out and vote. And thank you once again for taking the time to come through, and we wish you well.
Thank you so much.
Good
God
luck,
bless.
Joe.
And like I said, people choose. At the end of the day, the voters get to decide who they think will do the best job. And like I said, I trust the voters of Yonkers, and I believe in the people of this city. So God bless, and obviously thank you so much for having me on.
Yes.
Hit me later. Hit me later. Yeah. So I just want to when you got difference of opinion, this is good because this is what I told Bob. I said I wanted to have more of a format of like the Meet the Press format, only doing it the way we do it, where you do have the opposing viewpoints more, because a lot of times the people who come on this show are like-minded in nature, and you don't hear often the back and forth, the dialogue. And I want to create more of that going into the future. It's just the people have to come on the show. You know what I'm saying, on both sides, so we can make that happen. So, anything else that you want to add about the election? Not this election, but the election.
I think I've made it very clear that we face a choice between a continuation of our democratic traditions or authoritarian republicanism brought to us by President Donald Trump. And we need to reject it.
So, Lorraine, any word to the people about the importance of this election and anything to do with the election? that you want to get out to your people about the importance of vote and all that?
I think that it's very important to vote, and especially the Latino people, because we sit around in our asses and we talk a lot of shit, but we don't get out there and we vote. And it's about time that we got up there and we voted. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Just vote with your conscience. You vote with your heart. Vote with what you believe in. And if you don't know what the issues are, then, you know, maybe it's time, you know, people start getting educated, because stop riding in the backs of everybody else and get out there and do something.
Now, the one thing I do agree with Gail, hashtag vote like your life depends on it. And I totally agree 100% with that. Again, Georgia, y'all need to come out strong. If y'all don't get her well over 50%, y'all going to face a runoff, and that's not necessarily a good look for the Democrats, because, again, getting black and brown people to come out once is hard. Getting them to come back out again is very hard.
I mean...
And they're counting on that. I mean, I've heard the conversation. They're counting on the fact that it will be a runoff and that black and brown people are not going to come out and that they're going to just snatch us up.
Yeah, but we need to surprise them.
You know, I want to reiterate just how outrageous the president's proposal to do away with birthright citizenship is, especially the way he proposed it, in a very casual, matter-of-fact manner that glossed over all of the important details. The question that now confronts us today with the president's proposal is, A, does the president actually believe that he has the unilateral authority to revamp our democratic republic by issuing an executive order? A, because that kind of presidential fiat, as one might describe it, is how tyrants conduct themselves. That's not how laws are made and changed in a democracy, and surely not how constitutional amendments are changed. So that's number one. Number two, what does the president propose to do with those who currently reside in the United States, recognize their citizenship as citizens, and obtain their citizenship through birthright citizenship? It's an open question for me if he just means to eliminate it for everyone coming in, but grant birthright citizenship to those who he would imply have obtained it illegally, unlawfully, or does he propose to strip them of birthright citizenship? That is the question.
Here's one question. Didn't his wife have a child before she was a citizen?
I be honest with you, I do not know the particulars. I think Melania Trump.
She had a child before she was a citizen. She was just a citizen recently. She wasn't a citizen before.
See, this is the thing.
But I'm saying, so that child is an American citizen because of the birthright thing, because his mother was not a citizen of the city.
I mean, it's an open question, right? Because what does that mean? That if a person, I think Melania Trump came over on is it an HB1 visa? I think she got a special visa because she was a model or something, and she was supposed to be some sort of, big deal as a result. But I mean, there are people who had some legal authority to be on American soil, and gave birth. The question is, if you don't have authority and you gave birth, what is the fate of your child? More importantly, if your parent gave birth to you and they did not have an authority because they didn't have a green card or HB1 visa or any of the other kind of documents that one requires, what does that mean for people's citizenship status? Until the president says that it does not apply retroactively, it's a legitimate question to raise, and should it actually apply retroactively? It could mean that the president is really proposing stripping tens of thousands, if not millions of Americans of their citizenship. This would be a condition that would subject those folks to the same type of treatment that so-called undocumented are now being subject to, as they're placed in detention centers, separated from their children, not given due process rights, not allowed to invoke their right to a speedy trial. It'll be like Guantanamo all over again, except for millions and millions of people. That's how serious this thing is. The stripping of citizenship of large numbers of people, according to the historians that I read and admire, is one of the preconditions for genocide.
Last words, Lorraine? Caravan, anything?
Bob's gonna get mad at me.
No, go on, Lorraine. You have to say what you have to say.
You got 2 minutes.
I don't think that I don't necessarily disagree with the president in this case. I do think that everybody that was born here that's already a citizen should be so-called grandfathered in, so to speak. But I think that there should be some type of legislation, some type of something that if you are here and you are here illegally and you have a child, there's got to be some form of immigration reform as far as that is concerned. I don't think that because it's not just people from South America. We have Russians, we have all different kinds of nationalities that come here just to give birth. And I personally, I don't agree with it. I don't. And I think that there should be some form of way to make it work or not to make it work or whatever, but I think that anybody that's here already should be grandfathered in. That's my opinion.
And there you have it.
Thank you, sir.
That's why this is People Before Politics, the show that's not afraid to say it. Keeping it real, giving you real talk to the community since 2014. This is episode 190. We're coming up on the 200th episode soon.
Wow.
This will probably be either the end of this year or the beginning of January. So we have to do some kind of celebration, bringing back some of the old hosts or something like we did the 100th episode. You gotta, make a party out of it. Do a big celebration. A lot of shows don't see 200 episodes, so it's a big deal. It's a big number. So we definitely want to bring it in right. Couple of quick announcements. So I made an editorial decision with the November issue. Usually come out the first day or two of the month. But I thought that the coverage of this election was very important. So we're going to delay it a week or so, and we're going to cover the winners and the election and the results and what that means for the future. And in our special 2018 midterm election edition. It'll be out sometime between the 9th and the 15th. I'm not sure when. I'll know more when it get. I say that to say there is time now, because it should be out now if you want to advertise. We just got one advertiser, and I thank you very much, and I will follow up with you tomorrow. Anybody else who wants to advertise can still send it in. Hit us at advertisewithbw@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, who tuned in. Thank you, everybody who rode with us. You could be doing anything else, but you decided to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate it. This is the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday, 6 to 8 on InTheMixRadio.com.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. and I'm not afraid to say it, 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 and I'm not afraid to say it.